You know that feeling when summer used to last forever as a kid? When a single school year felt like a lifetime of adventures? But now, somehow, the whole year blurs past before you even notice it started. That is not just you being dramatic. That is actually your brain doing something really strange and honestly, a little unsettling. So let us talk about why time feels like it is speeding up the older you get. And more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Because the answer is both fascinating and surprisingly hopeful. First, here is the basic idea that most scientists agree on. When you are 5 years old, 1 year represents a full 20% of your entire life. When you are 50, that same year is only 2% of everything you have ever experienced. So proportionally, a year genuinely is shorter the older you get. It is like the difference between a huge slice and a tiny sliver of the exact same pie. But that is just the math. The brain stuff is where things get really interesting. Neuroscientists have spent decades trying to figure out why our perception of time changes so dramatically. And the leading theory has to do with something called neural firing rate. Here is how it works. When you are young, your brain is constantly encountering new things. New faces, new places, new smells, new sounds, new everything. Every single day is basically a data dump of fresh experiences. And your brain has to work really hard to process all of that novelty. That extra processing work actually makes time feel stretched out and full. But as you get older, your brain gets lazy in the best possible way. It starts recognizing patterns and taking shortcuts. Your commute to work becomes automatic. Your morning routine runs on autopilot. Your brain essentially says, seen it, done it, filing it away, moving on. And when your brain is not working hard to process new information, time just slides right past. Think of it like a road trip. The first time you drive an unfamiliar route, every turn feels significant. Every landmark sticks in your memory. But drive that same road 100 times and suddenly the whole journey seems to disappear. That is your brain being efficient, but it comes at a cost. There is also a theory from a physicist named Bejan at Duke University. He proposed that as we age, the speed at which our brain processes visual information actually slows down. The neural pathways get longer. The signals travel less efficiently. So our brains receive and process fewer mental images per second as we get older. And since our perception of time is basically a sequence of these mental images, fewer images means time feels like it is moving faster. It is almost like watching a movie at a lower frame rate. The action seems to blur and rush by. Now here is an opinion worth chewing on. Some philosophers and psychologists argue that modern life is making this whole problem dramatically worse. We scroll through hundreds of images and videos every single day without actually absorbing any of them. We consume enormous amounts of information, but rarely sit with any single experience long enough to form a real memory. So not only is our aging brain filing things away faster, we are also feeding it a constant stream of forgettable, disposable content. No wonder the years feel hollow and fast. There is also something called the reminiscence bump. Researchers have found that when older adults look back on their lives, they tend to remember events from their teens and 20s most vividly. That is because that period was absolutely packed with firsts. First love, first job, first real sense of independence. All of that novelty creates incredibly rich and vivid memories, which makes that chapter of life feel long and significant in retrospect. Meanwhile, years of comfortable routine leave behind almost no memorable moments at all. So the terrifying conclusion is this: a life lived entirely in comfort and routine might feel incredibly short when you look back on it, not because bad things happened, but because nothing truly surprising or new did. But here is the good news, and this is the part worth paying attention to. Science also tells us exactly what makes time slow down again, and it is simpler than you might expect. Novelty is the single most powerful tool you have. When your brain encounters something genuinely new, it wakes up. It starts processing hard again, laying down rich and detailed memories. Even small things count. A new restaurant, a new walking route, a new hobby you are terrible at. These tiny injections of novelty interrupt the autopilot and force your brain to actually pay attention. Travel does this spectacularly well. When you arrive somewhere unfamiliar, suddenly everything is worth noticing. The street signs, the smells, the food, the sounds. Your brain is working overtime, and a single week can feel like an entire month back home. That is not magic. That is just your brain doing what it was always built to do. Mindfulness and deliberate attention have the same effect. When you genuinely pay attention to what you are eating, who you are talking to, and what you are looking at, your brain encodes those moments more deeply. Time stretches because your experience of it becomes richer and more detailed. Moments that you are fully present for simply take up more space in your memory. Learning a new skill is particularly powerful, whether it is an instrument, a language, or even just how to cook something new. Your brain has to build entirely fresh neural pathways, and that construction work makes time feel full and substantial again. Social connection plays a huge role too. Shared experiences with people you love tend to be among the most vividly remembered moments in life. They have emotion, context, meaning. Your brain holds on to them tightly. So here is where we land with all of this. Time is not actually speeding up, of course. The clock runs exactly the same as it always did. But your perception of time is entirely in your hands. A life full of new experiences, genuine attention, and meaningful connections will always feel longer and richer in retrospect. Not because you tricked your brain, but because you gave it something worth remembering. You are not running out of time. You are just running low on novelty. And that is a problem you can start solving right now. Today, this week. The next new thing you try, no matter how small, is quite literally adding perceived time to your life. It is adding texture and weight and richness to the fabric of your experience. And when you eventually look back, those moments are exactly what you will see. So go learn something you have no idea how to do yet. Go somewhere you have never been. Talk to someone you do not know. Try the food you always skip past on the menu. Because every single genuinely new experience is your brain pressing the slow motion button on your life. And honestly, when you think about it that way, the future looks pretty incredible. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.